Okay, good morning. We'll go ahead and call to order the annual meeting of Countryside Church for 2023. I'd like Reverend Scott Giles to come up and lead us in an opening reading.
As an opening reading, I have chosen something written by the Reverend Dr. Earl Holt. Earl was for many years the minister of King's Chapel Unitarian in Boston, personal acquaintance of mine, and a very, very close friend of Rupert Lovely, our late minister emeritus. And Earl has spoken from this pulpit. Every once in a while, someone realizes that religion and the church are not synonymous. This is one of those old ideas that for some reason is always striking someone as startlingly new. I believe in religion, but I don't believe in the church, someone declares. I can be just as religious on a mountaintop, or much more likely the golf course, as in church on Sunday. The response to which is, of course you can. The important question is whether you are. It matters very little what you believe, if that's as far as it goes. What matters are the beliefs you express. Values are important only if they are embodied, expressed in some concrete action or form. I'm sure there are millions of people who are Unitarian Universalists without knowing it. They concern me less than the people, hundreds, thousands, who are Unitarian Universalists without really showing it. People who believe in the values of liberal religion, freedom of conscience, tolerance of diversity, reason, democracy, unity of spirit, but who fail to express their belief by some commitment to a church which attempts, however imperfectly, to embody those values. So the church is not religion, I know that, and the church is a very imperfect institution, I know that too. People are imperfect, the church is people, ergo the church is imperfect. There's no way around it logically or otherwise. I believe in religion, a relatively easy thing to do, or at least to say. I also believe in the church, and sometimes that's much harder. But in an imperfect world, it's one of the best things we've got. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. It's beautiful. At the start of every board meeting, we recite a board covenant that is different than the church covenant, and we're going to do that now to get this meeting started. So board members, if you could be ready to step up to the mic when it's your turn. We covenant to facilitate and guide Countryside Church, Unitarian Universalist, in its continuously evolving work as a spiritual and ethical home for our UU values.
We honor that all of us come from different places and identities. We embrace our differences and commonalities with love, curiosity, and respect for the ongoing well-being of the congregation through our work on this board.
We'll think critically, accept strengths and weaknesses, and come together for what's best for Countryside. We'll resolve tensions with support and assistance.
We recognize that the impact of our words and actions matter, even more than intentions.
We pledge to avoid negativity through thoughtful statements, sincere questioning, naming our feelings when hurt, and even using kind humor.
If hurt occurs, we will sit in discomfort. Forgiveness means calling one another back into covenant to make amends.
We will honor transparency as a hallmark of Countryside culture. We'll demonstrate our commitment in our processes, words, and actions.
We recognize that the minister and the board are interdependent co-leaders. Everything we do impacts our congregational web. We are all responsible for the well-being and mission of Countryside.
We pledge to dismantle all forms of oppression within our congregational actions and structures and commit to shape congregational life in ways that empower and enhance everyone's participation.
We covenant to side with love throughout the congregation. We pledge to replace barriers with ever-widening circles of solidarity and care.
And will bring joy, laughter, and fun to the transformative work of Countryside. Chocolate, sunlight, and good food helps too. So I want to establish how we're going to vote today. So for those of us who are in the auditorium, you're going to vote simply by raising your hand when it's time. For those of you who are on Zoom, please make sure right now that you have your camera turned on, and also make sure that if there's more than one family member, that you both can be seen in the camera, because you're going to raise your hand when it's time to vote as well. If there's anyone who's participating by phone because they can't get to a computer, if you could send a email to Pat Wydell. Right now, that's patwydell@gmail.com, and then we'll know to look out for an email for you. So the first thing that we want to do is to establish the quorum. So Jerome, if you could count the left side, Debbie, maybe count the right side. I'm assuming most of us are members, but please raise your hand if you are a CCUU member, and we'll make sure that we've got enough people to have the meeting. And Jeff, Louise, could you count who's on Zoom? What have you got?
31.
And
8 on the board.
8. And what do we have on Zoom? They don't have their camera turned on? We have quorum, but it'd be nice just to know. Quorum is 54, and we have 64. Yeah. 63.
Okay, we're at 21.
Okay. All right, so we do have quorum. Okay, so we'll proceed with the agenda. As probably you know already, Reverend Denise is out in Philadelphia. The news on her son's surgery is all good. It sounded like it was a textbook example, went as well as it possibly could. And she has sent in a video address for us. So let's go ahead and proceed to that.
Hello, Countryside. This is Reverend Denise, your interim minister, and I'm giving my interim report on video in case I don't have the bandwidth to do it tomorrow, whether that's technical or because I'm in Philadelphia with my son right now at the hospital. I want to give you an overview of our amazing year that we have had together. It feels incredible that I just met you in September, and we have done so much work together. First of all, oh my goodness, the way you reopened, I mean, pretty much reopening has been all done here in this year, and we've done the interim work at the same time. We've done a lot of deep digging into our work around children and religious education, and really we're in a process of moving to a plan and goals-based program rather than one that's dependent on each person that works there. And so that's really exciting. We're also building back religious education in a new way because a lot of families are not looking for so much class after class, but more looking for ways to connect and have community. And so we've also been working on building more children and youth into our services and having them be a wider and more important part of our life at Countryside. We're doing a lot of work around safety for youth. I'm so excited about this. There's a new course that the UUA put together for us, and then we've been taking it online and then having discussions about it, and the conversations are rich and wonderful, so that's been exciting. I was sorry to see Mary Sheldon go, but also delighted that Debbie Lee and Linda Berry have majorly stepped up. We really can't thank them enough for how much they have been helping us and guiding us. And they're going to be helping me through the time that we hire someone else. The budget that you get to vote on in a few minutes is one that has a part-time religious educator that we want to bring in. And I think that that's going to be amazing. We also have Susan Auld, who stepped up to do adult faith formation. And she is also working with me so there are basics and advanced and all different things for adults to learn and take in. And it doesn't all have to be done through classes. Some can be done through videos and movies and book discussions and field trips and other kinds of trips. So that's very exciting. And again, give Susan Auld a big thanks because that's an incredible getting us started on too, and I'm so happy to be partnering with her. There are 7 areas of ministry that every minister is to work on. Worship and rites of passage is the first one, and so you've seen us have a lot more people incorporated into worship. I work at bringing multicultural perspectives, different learning styles, different visuals, all kinds of different ways to put together worship. And that's another way that we're working together in order to shake worship up, try worship new ways, because whoever you call as your settled minister will do worship yet another way. But it's always good for us to be flexible, and also one style is just never going to work for everybody. There will always be styles we have that don't work for some and do work for others, and so we have to constantly be mixing it up to widen our circle, to bring more people into the fold and to have them have worshipful, spiritual, intellectual, inspirational, edutainment experiences in worship. The next area that every minister is to work on is pastoral care and presence. Usually interim ministers don't do as much of this. Now our year started together with quite a tragedy, and that impacted not just the family that happened to, but also so many of you were impacted. It brought up trauma from things that you've experienced. It impacted people throughout our community, and I can't thank you all enough for partnering with me on that. And I also want to thank the lay ministry team, because I feel like we continue to build a really good partnership together on how we care for people in the community. We're also working on learning more pastoral skills. So you've been introduced to more of those in sermons and classes and things like that, so that you can care for one another, because the more ways we can learn to love and care for one another, the stronger this community is. Spiritual development for self, for me, and others is also something that I work on, that all ministers are to work on. And so that's why you've heard so much about spiritual practice this year. Some people are looking to have all of their experiences at church be spiritual. We learn ways to be spiritual on our own, and we can't do that work alone. We have to do it together. And so that's been something you've certainly seen in our year. Social justice in the public square is another one of those areas. So I hear that a lot more people are interested in social justice than have been. Maybe it's because they have more room for that since COVID is not as acute, even though it's quite serious still. but not as acute. And you've also seen me sometimes pick social justice related topics in sermons, sometimes weaving that into things as to ways that we can respond. It's another way that we walk the talk or live our values as Unitarian Universalists. Oh my goodness, has administration been huge this year. I did not expect that area to comprise so much of the work of the ministry at Countryside, but I've been working hand in hand with Lori Lance and also with our personnel team. We developed a stewardship team because that wasn't a permanent team here. And we've also introduced the idea that stewardship does not just have to be people who are financially minded, that there's lots of gifts and talents to that. It's a fun team, and I hope that you will consider joining us on it. There's a lot to learn, and there's a lot of you who have skills in that area. Administration has been a big area with all of the work we've been doing on a personnel manual and making goals for all the staff and working on reviews and working on job descriptions and stuff like that, as well as establishing a lot of new procedures or enhancing things that were there. It's been a huge area to concentrate on during the interim period, and that will continue next year. You've been introduced to an interim transitions team, and that team has been working hand in hand with me to kind of have us all have deep conversations together and go over the 5 areas of interim ministry that are so important. And so the interim transitions team is a team to guide us. They do lots of the work that the new search team will need to use in order to do their work. And so that's wonderful. They also have us asking deep questions about who we've been and where we're going and who are we and what does church matter in this church 2.0 kind of point that we're in time. So that's been another major area. We've had well over 100 people participate in that process. There's another conversation on Tuesday. I won't be there, but please go and talk about the mission and what you dream this church to be. What do you think it is that we're supposed to focus on? Some people say they come here to be challenged. Some people come here to be inspired, some to learn, some to love deeply, some to examine the big questions in life. And you know what? Those are all totally valid. So go talk about those, because I'm seeing the people who come to those sessions make deeper friends, and that's really exciting too. Serving the larger Unitarian Universalist faith is an area that every minister should concentrate on. You've heard a lot more about Article 2. You've heard tons about tools that we get and things that we use from the UUA. That's a daily part of church life that not all congregants know about. You've also heard more about General Assembly, and we have the Midwest Regional meeting coming up. We need delegates for that too. And I'm really excited that Mike Gilly and Jeannie Scown have taken up co-leading that team to outreach more about what our presence is in the larger ways that we relate to other Unitarian Universalists. And boy, does that matter. I mean, when we look at the tragedy that happened at the beginning of the year, one of the resources that I used was the UU Trauma Ministry. And they helped guide how to respond to that tragedy. And then we recently had this awful accident with the people who'd lived in Chalice House, and immediately I was able to go to another minister who was located near them, and that congregation has been helping, our beloveds from Chalice House. And those are tools that we have because we are members of the Unitarian Universalist Association, and I'm a member of the UUMA, so that's pretty exciting too. And then we also are looking at how do we lead our faith into the future. And we're learning that it doesn't have to be one precise way. In fact, part of the interim tools and things that we learn is about how interim ministry is not, all ministry is not having one way. It's about holding the idea that many of us have different ideas about what works for us, what our values are, and how we go forward. And in fact, it's holding that complexity that really leads us forward. So if you want to know more about any of this, I wrote a really detailed report in the annual report, and I hope that you will take a look at that. I hope you'll ask questions. Bring your curiosity. Wonder about things. I wonder why they did that. I wonder what that means. You know, take a look at those 5 areas of interim ministry that we're working on. You know, we got really far in the first couple of them, and now we're going deeper into the next ones. This work will all continue next year together. I also want to congratulate you because you are about to vote on a budget that holds so much equity and really promise for the future, and is going to make, you know, CCUU much more competitive in the search for a settled minister, and I think that's super exciting. So I can't wait to partner with you on the journey as we go forward next year together. I can't wait to hear how your vote goes from this meeting, and I just want to thank you. You've been a real gift to minister to and to partner with, and I'm so happy for all that I learned from you. So, big thanks. Big thanks. I send my love from Philadelphia, and just know I hold you in my heart every single day.
And I have been advised that Reverend Denise is on Zoom and tuning in, so hello Denise, we're glad that you're with us, and thanks for that address. In terms of my report, I'll just say it's been a quiet little presidency for me. Not too much has happened, but and I'll confess I've already been out to a graduation this morning and sat through a bunch of stiff scripted speeches, so you're not going to get that from me. I would just say, if we think back, 3 years ago, at this exact time, the meeting was on Zoom. We'd been shut down for 2 months, pivoted immediately to staying connected online. But 3 years ago, we had no idea what our future was going to be. 2 years ago, we were still in the pandemic and, you know, kind of wondering whether we would be able to come together. There was a lot of debate at that time. Our finances, our future was still a little bit in doubt. Last year at this time, we were back, we were reopened, and we were clawing our way back from $130,000 deficit. We had cobbled things together. We had gone through a search process and not got any candidates at all, and we're thinking maybe we would get one in the second round, which did end up happening. So that was only 12 months ago, and here we are now. So it's been a great year, I think, in terms of stability. There's been lots of discussion about church will never be the same again, church 2.0. That's all valid. It's all things that we are, as a congregation, as a board, thinking about. But what's great to me is that the feel of Countryside is still here. The spirit is still here. So I'm happy for that and looking forward to the future. So now we're going to move into committee reports, and our first one is our endowment committee. And Laura Corrigan, if you could please come up.
Good morning. My name is Laura Corrigan, and I'm the chairperson of the Countryside Endowment Committee. This last year, 2022-23, the Endowment Committee also consisted of Ed Monson, Craig Weidel, Peggy Simonson, and Karen Epps. The endowment fund's purpose is to ensure the long-term financial viability and growth of our church. After the fund reaches a self-sustaining level, it could be after 20 years, the interest will be used to supplement the church programs, and partner support at the discretion of the board. Donations to the endowment fund are over and separate from the operating pledge contributions. So now that the pledging is done, you'll probably hear more from us. The endowment committee has been holding the account steady this year and not making any large changes to the current fund allocations. As of May 20th, the endowment account totals $110,333. This is invested in two separate accounts, the CCUU Fidelity account and the Unitarian Universalist Common Endowment Fund account. The Fidelity account holds three funds and a money market. The funds are exchange traded and include the Vanguard Environmental, Social, and Governance, or ESG ETF, the Invesco Wilder Hill Clean Energy ETF, and the ARC Innovation ETF. The Vanguard ETF totals $43,690. And this encompasses all U.S. stocks, excluding companies in adult entertainment, alcohol, tobacco, weapons, fossil fuels, gambling, and nuclear power. The Invesco Wilder Hill Clean Energy ETF amount is $9,852. This clean energy fund is composed of U.S. stocks in the business of cleaner energy and conservation advancement. The ARC Innovation Fund totals $4,426, and companies in the ARC Fund rely on or benefit from technological improvements and scientific research. Then the separate account, the UU Common Endowment Fund, totals $47,000 currently. It's professionally managed for over 300 UU congregations and is aligned with UU's socially responsible investing. During the current economic downturn and in accordance with the endowment's long-term investment policy, the endowment committee has continued to hold the current investments and not make any large changes. In 2023-24, the committee will continue to monitor the funds just described. When appropriate, the Fidelity funds may be moved to the UU Common Endowment Fund. But our additional goals this year include raising awareness for the giving opportunities in our church to forward the endowment fund for years to come. Please feel free to reach out to any endowment committee members with questions or suggestions. There is an email address. It's endowment@ccu.org. Feel free to email us. And thank you. Does anyone have any questions we can go over? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, let me point out that Mike does have a microphone up here, so if you do have a question, you could just come to the front at any point during the meeting. Next, we're going to move on to a project that's close to all of our hearts, the Chalice House. And so Christine Organ, if you could come up.
Hi, everyone. My name is Christine Organ, pronouns are she, her. I'm one of the co-chairs of Chalice House, along with Laura Mandel and also Debbie Klein from Our Savior's Lutheran Church in Arlington Heights. I'll be brief. I think if you want to read more details, there's a lot of information in the annual report. Most notably, in August 2022, we welcomed the second group of residents to the home. It includes a family of 3 from Colombia and a young man from Guatemala. There would be too many people to name. Like, there's so many people from this congregation and other congregations that are involved in so many ways. The mentor team is just phenomenal, and even beyond that, there are people on the hospitality team that assist with giving rides to language classes, just providing friendship support, answering questions, everything like that. So thank you to everyone involved in Chalice House volunteering. We are also, another thing of note is we're building really strong relationships with other community partners. Our Saviors is currently a 50-50 partner in the financial commitment of Chalice House. So we have a co-chair on the, as I said, Debbie Klein from Our Saviors. They're doing a lot of really instrumental work. They've taken it on as a project of their own as well. Even beyond them, Southminster, they hosted an event in February, I believe, that welcomed the residents and those of us from Chalice House to come and welcomed and did an art project, which was lovely. And Judy Ball's chairing up the community team and has been organizing some other events with other community partners. So that's been really great to see. All of this has been done with zero impact on the operating budget. So that's a really, really great thing to be able to do. We are going to have a few needs, a new roof and a dryer, so there might be some additional fundraising, but we don't have details on that right now. You can go to the next slide, please. Here's just a pie chart of the source of funds. The grants, this is program to date, so since 2019-ish when we first started fundraising. Those grants have been exhausted. They were with the UUA, so if anybody knows of any other applicable grants, let us know, and we can research those. 32% from Countryside, that includes the fundraisers, Time and Talent, Music with a Mission. 37% has been from community partners. Those are Our Saviors and a handful of other congregations in the area. And 18% of individuals, both within Countryside and outside. So that's it. Questions? Thank you.
And our final committee report is Outreach Steering Council. Mike Berry, come on up.
Thank you, Tom. Again, my name is Mike Berry. My pronouns are he, him. And good morning to everybody. The Outreach Steering Committee marks 10 years this year of its existence. And I think that's an important milestone, but creating the OSC was a means for Countryside to demonstrate faith in action, an outward demonstration of our values, words that you hear often from this spot. Our events this year raised money for Chalice House, which has become an integral part of CCUU's identity, as well as our three service partners, Illinois Community for Displaced Immigrants, Faith in Place, and Partners for Our Communities. We've shared some information about these remarkable organizations with you from here and otherwise, but you can learn more on the OSC page about these groups that we are partnering with. The OSC holds 2 events a year. Music with a Mission raised just under $3,200 this year. That was a record amount. Thanks very much to Jeff Phillips for spearheading that effort. Our Time and Talent event last week, and special thanks to Mari Van Meter, Nancy Dempsey, Nancy Frank, and John Keneally for his invaluable tech support. Raised just under $30,000. All that for nothing. These were both held in person, hybrid in the case of Time and Talent, creating an even heavier lift as we reemerge from pandemic restrictions. So again, many thanks to the organizers and all of you for your very generous donations and contributions and participation. Looking ahead, we plan to again hold both our events in person this year. We are working with our service partners to build these relationships even further, and there are various volunteer opportunities. I'm personally most familiar with those at POC, but we can certainly get you more information about volunteer opportunities at our partner organizations if that's of interest, and we certainly encourage that. We'll also work together in this coming year. There's some logistical things with the nominating committee to formalize the process for populating the OSC. More to come on that. And thanks for your attention. I'm happy to entertain any questions if you have any. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks, John. Now, on to the first of two important things that we have to cover today, and that is electing new leadership. So we've got an excellent nominating committee who works hard for us all the time, comes up with great candidates, and I think has a lot of fun in the process too. But John Evans, could you come on up? And you're looking surprised, John. We do this every year. I was kind of waiting for you to come on up. Okay, but the chair of the nominating committee, John Evans.
Well, this is a surprise to me. Hi, guys. So let's go to the first slide. So the nominating committee does have fun. And I'm coming off the nominating committee, so I guess I thought I was done. After the meeting, all right. So this is basically the Board of Trustees for 23, 24. I can't see it if I do that, I have to go like this. So this is the Board of Trustees to be elected and voted on. Lisa Gilly, would you please stand up? Debbie Lee, continuing. Dan Yokas, continuing. By continuing, I mean they agreed to do another term. Oh, I need to hear my voice for the kickback. That's why they don't let me up here. Ryan, you here? There you are. Okay, there's Ryan. When you see somebody with no facial expression, that would be. Continuing into the rest of their term are Pat Wydell.
Forgot Jerome.
Where's Jerome?
Jerome's up there.
Oh, he was distracting me because he's wearing shorts today, and I just All right, moving right along. Let's go. Pat Wydell, continuing for the rest of her term. Emily. And Denise Sipos, who's probably out on a boat someplace on Bang Lake. So the next slide is interesting to all of us. So Laura Corrigan has continued to go for a whole nother term. The whole endowment committee is a 5-year term, so this is like serious stuff. It's got a lot of continuity on it. I was glad to hear her say she was going to continue. And it's continuing Karen Epps, Ed Monson, Craig Wydell, and Peggy Simonson. Okay, to be elected are these wonderful people for the nominating committee. They should have some fun. Margaret, there you are. Hayden, I saw you this morning. There you go. Christina. Ellen Vinzani, which is usually in Denver. And Linda Berry, who is continuing for the rest of the term. She's in the Boston and Sacramento Bay. Next slide, please. Okay, but first, this guy, when he was making light of what he had to go through for the last couple of years, I mean, totally fantastic leadership and thought and process. It's a big line.
Thank you, John. So what we're going to do then is vote on these one at a time. If I could have the same people who counted the quorum be available to count their part of the room, and Jeff and Luis, if you could be, I think Jerome is helping there as well. So Jerome's doing the Zoom, so Tim, could you count this side? Tim will count this side of the auditorium. So please raise your hand, hold it up. First is for the newly elected board slate. So all in favor, say aye. Raise your hand. Got to count who's in favor first, then opposed, then abstaining. We've got total, Dan's gonna record the totals. What's?
Okay.
Yeah.
27.
20,
39.
27 and 39, so 86.
And one email.
Oh, and one email.
And
So there's somebody.
And Drew?
So is that 87 total?
67.
Yes, again, on Zoom, we need to see you for your vote to count. So please turn your camera on and have everybody in your household who's voting visible on the camera. So that's 16, thanks. You get that 16 on Zoom. Anyone opposed, raise your hand. Anyone abstaining? Okay, the leadership slate passes. I think, so it's not so cumbersome, let's just do the next two by voice vote, if that's okay. If that's not violating any procedures. Okay, so now we're electing the endowment committee, which really the only change there is that Laura is coming on another term. Everybody else is continuing. So all in favor of the endowment committee slate of Laura, please say aye. Aye. Is there anyone opposed? And anyone abstaining? Okay. And now for the nominating committee, this is the most change, I think, on any of the groups here. So the new people to be elected are Margaret Myron, Hayden Pierce, Christina Smith, and Ellen Vinzani. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Okay, and now we're going to move on to the search committee. So the search committee will ultimately be 7 people. 5 are elected today by the congregation, and 2 more will be appointed by the board in about the next month. So the slate here that the nominating committee worked hard on is Judy Ball, Tracy Boland, Tony Preto, Chelsea Scroggin, and Joy Simon. So we can do voice for this again. Okay, all right. So all in favor of these 5 members as the start of the search committee, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Okay, that's it for the voting. So we've got, I think, recognition for outgoing leadership. That should be the next slide there.
What about the proposed budget
Huh? Oh, the bylaws changes, yes, I'm sorry. Okay, so let's move on to, there were a couple of changes for the bylaws. This is cleaning up things to reflect common practice. So the first bylaw, we noticed, actually Mike Gilly was the kind of the champion of noticing that we had some gendered language that was still hanging around in the bylaws, references to things like he and him, or he and her, which needed to be changed to a neutral pronoun. So the bylaws are not changing really any of the substantiveness, it's just changing this gendered language. So are there any questions about this before we vote? There's a second bylaw.
Second gender.
Second page where you can see the language that's being changed. And again, it's just his and her to their. Okay, so we'll call the question about the bylaw change for updating the gendered language. All in favor of this, please say aye. Aye. Is there anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Okay, the second thing is the voting procedures. As you know, Zoom has just become a fact of life for us. This is true at committee meetings. It's also true at all worship, and it's true today on Zoom. There are members who are participating in this meeting who are not present here in the room. So we wanted the bylaws to reflect that if you are participating video-wise, you should be counted in the quorum, and that the board has a quorum if people are participating that way. We wanted to make sure that it was video as opposed to just like calling in, because when you're in a video conference, you're fully present in the meeting. You can see any visuals that are being presented, and people kind of know that you're there, okay? So that was the intent of this. The existing language is highlighted in yellow. Can we continue to the next slide? So there you see it. And again, it's just simply saying that if you're participating by video, you are a full-fledged participant and your vote counts. So we'll call the question on the proposed bylaws. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Is there anyone opposed or abstaining? Okay. All right, well, I was jumping the gun before, but now let's recognize our outgoing leadership. These are people who are completing their term, so we want to express our thanks to them. You can see the pictures there. So I'm done with my term, as is Susan in June. Barry Burr, John Evans, Joy Simon, and Karen Spielman are finishing up their terms on the nominating committee. And Margaret, who was actually our board appointee, thank you for that, on nominating, is now being elected to be on the nominating committee. So we do want to thank all of those people for their service. You know, Countryside, I think one of our strengths is the rotational leadership and the fact that we do have term limits and we do have people stepping up to take different positions. So, and as the board chair, we all would like to thank Susan Auld very much for her participation on the board. She persevered through, you know, a year that was a little challenging at times, but always was very thoughtful, always there when we needed her. So, Susan, thanks so much for everything you did.
I thought this would be at the end, but we want to thank Tom over and over and over and over. And this is some fun and some sin in this bag.
Sins in the box.
Sins in the box, right.
I think, unless you know it.
Yeah, right. So I'd like to see a show of hands as to how many of you have lived through a global pandemic before COVID came along. So I won't repeat a lot of what Tom said, but of course in March 2020, we went into a lockdown here in Chicago due to COVID. And nonetheless, Tom accepted the role of president-elect in May 2022 in the face of these really unprecedented circumstances. So our very, very first thanks to you, Tom, is to say yes to that call amidst that backdrop of uncertainty and fear. Our Board of Trustees have all contributed to this thank you, and so there was no script for this. It was a real roller coaster as a congregation, as a country, and as a global community, and we've been so blessed to have you during this tumultuous time. Tom has served as a calm and diplomatic leader for our congregation, figuring out really how to be a church during these uncharted waters, how to offer support and solace and continued ritual and community without being together in the building and without knowing what the future held. He drove the safety committee's work and balanced the physical needs and the emotional needs of both our congregation members and our staff members to figure out how and when to proceed. You may have had an opinion about what was safe and when we should open the sanctuary and when we should come back to church and when we should wear masks and when we should sing and have coffee. I venture to say most of us had a lot of opinions about that one way or another. But not everybody had to decide what to do for the community. Not everybody had to navigate such a diverse, well, actually polarized set of opinions to come to a workable agreement about when to gather again. So Tom, thanks for steadfastly making it through the uncertainty and conflict with, as far as I know, without throwing a tantrum and without throwing in the towel. We thank you for that. We never missed a Sunday service throughout the entire pandemic, and here we are now back in our beautiful building with energy and enthusiasm and with new members. And there's more. While navigating the uncertainties of the pandemic, Tom also led us through the unexpected leave of our minister and ultimately the retirement of our minister. Tom was a leader on the small and nimble team who found an interim minister to shepherd us through this new chapter of congregational life. He helped bring Denise on board and took care of so many things during that time that aren't normally the realm of responsibility of a board president. So we've been so fortunate to have someone as board president who has had sound judgment and so clear thinking during such uncertain times. It's not only his voice and his music that are calming, his presence and communication style, and his way of approaching decision-making is calming. As one of our board members put it so perfectly, Tom Dempsey is a gentleman. He's a consummate professional who treats everybody with respect all the time, even me when I get upset. And he takes the time to listen to everybody's point of view. He's a consensus builder. He knows how to find common ground among people with different opinions and points of views, and also willing to subordinate his own needs for the common good. He reaches out to people who express differences of opinion, sometimes not so kindly, and he reaches out to them to meet in person and to give them a phone call, which isn't always easy. He's unflappable and he maintains decorum, even in difficult situations. Some of us haven't worked alongside you for years, but even in the time we have, we've come to recognize and admire your leadership skills. He's been a skillful and steady board president, and we hold him in high esteem. And what a case study this whole scenario would be. It would make for a great graduate level college class in anything: social sciences, psychology, economics, game theory, business, ethics, and technology. Tom will be a tough act to follow. He's a talented guitarist and singer who's lifted our spirits with many musical contributions and brought us heartwarming wonder of our children's voices. What a gift. And did I mention his key lime pies? They're organic and delicious and a little overpriced. I think some of us paid about $30 for a pie the other night. It's a true pleasure working with you, Tom. Even when others may have disagreed with you and had opinions, you've always been able to work with each of us, and not only willing, but able and helpful at the same time. Your dedication to CCUU, your calm leadership, and your focus and priority setting gave us direction and purpose, and you're a leader who reflects the values of our faith in what you do and how we accomplish things. You have our heartfelt thanks, and it's been a true pleasure. Thank you.
Shucks, Lisa, thank you. In terms of expressing gratitude, there's another group that we owe our undying gratitude to as well. The way that I envision Countryside, you tend to think about the property, the building, but the way that I envision it is we're 250 people that have come together and we have a mission where there are things that we want to do for our community, and we pull in and we support that mission. But we also hire staff who organize us and implement that mission. So the church isn't just the four walls, it isn't just the 250 of us. It's very much the staff who work hard every day to take those dreams and aspirations and put them into reality. Pay the bills, answer the phone, plan the music, play the piano, write the sermons. So Reverend Denise, I believe that you're watching, so I do hope that over the Zoom lines, the thanks comes through. And then also, Janice, Allison, could you stand up, please? Louise, Lori Lance, Lori, stand up. Our hardworking staff. Okay, thank you so much for everything. And I do want to mention Linda and Debbie, who really have functioned as unpaid staff all year and continue to do that. Karen Epps is here as often as anyone, helping keep the office working smoothly. And Susan has really stepped up with the adult faith development and also doing that as a volunteer, but doing the same role that staff do. Okay, so thank you again, staff, for everything. Now, the other big ticket item that we've got to get done today is to approve a budget, and to walk us through that is our awesome treasurer, Debbie Lee.
It's afternoon, so I'm going to go through this extremely quickly. I would encourage you to stick up your hand if you have a question. I will try to answer, but I don't want to keep us here any longer than necessary. I'm hungry. Okay. So what happened this year? What happened this year was pledges were awesome. And I would like to personally thank everybody who has made a pledge and paid the pledge, and that's great. Unfortunately, the Close the Gap pledges didn't crack out to be what we had hoped for, but because of the Giving Tuesday in December and everything else that we do here, we were above budget, and it worked out to be really well, really nice. Okay, the other side is the expense side. So the expense side, the big surprise on the expense side was the utilities. I don't know what your personal bills look like, but my bills were crazy, and the utilities were crazy as well here. So buildings and grounds were not our best shower on the expense side. Because of the grounds crew, Siri, thank you very much, not spending their money, it wasn't going to be a problem. That's not possible going forward, but that's what happened there. As for personnel, that's where we saved the most money, with Rep D starting late in the summer, September-ish, we saved some money there, and with Reverend Mary leaving in March, we saved quite a bit of money there. So the expenses really were under what we had predicted, even though come the first of the year, we were able to increase the staff retirement pay, and we did bring their benefits up to UUA and what are really equitable standards. So we were really happy to be able to do that, given everything else that was going on. The bottom line was we made $40-some thousand last year. We are ahead of the budget by $40-some thousand. That is awesome. That is not repeatable, but that is awesome. Next slide. So just as a quick recap, Giving Tuesday, the play cash was up, the grounds committee saved us money. The green boxes are where we saved a bunch of money, the red boxes are where we did not. But with this extra $44,000, the first thing we're gonna do, assuming that this all pans out, we still have May and June to account for, is restore what we spent from the capital budget. Capital budget is way under where it should be. We're gonna get it back to where, at least where it was at the beginning of this year. And we're gonna put $15,000 aside for a minister search fund. That's money that needs to be spent as we go to find our new minister. I hope that wasn't Freudian. Our new settled minister. And that way we have, assuredly, we've got money to at least get the search going. That's not gonna be in the budget. This is just a basic breakdown of where our income comes from. And you can see most of it comes from pledges. If anybody's questions, I'll go through it, but otherwise I think we can keep going. Likewise, this is the expense side. The biggest part of our expense is personnel. So if we're gonna support the personnel that we have, this is how it gets worked out. Okay, next slide. This is very important to some people to see where the heck our money actually goes for the work that this church does. Membership is a big chunk, but the other thing, operations, study, service, kinship, it's all a big piece of the pie. There's no slivers in this. All of these ministries are very important. Okay, here comes this year. So this year we have a balanced budget because anybody that knows me knows that I can't deal with anything that's not balanced, and including me going downstairs. But this reflects what we have conservatively, or maybe not so conservatively, maybe optimistically been aggressive with, but conservative for me, where we think we're going to be spending money this year. The biggest expense will be for personnel again, but the pledge payments have really, people pledging did a really awesome job, and I think we're in good shape for next year. Last slide. And just as a means to show you how this is great, but I'm not sure how sustainable this is without some changes in the coming year, which I'm pretty sure are going to happen. We are getting new members, we're renting the facility spaces, rents have gone up. So I think this is a little disheartening, but I think it should encourage us to keep up the good fight. Just the cost per household of what everything costs here. When we did the pledge drives, we talked about, how much it's worth for you, how much a service is of value to you, how much your time is worth. And this is the breakdown of that. So for anyone that's interested. And that's all I got.
So what questions do people have? When does that happen? So to say it out loud, that enormous deficit that we were facing 15 months ago, to go from that to a year where we did have a surplus because of a few anomalies with open staff positions at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year. We went from this huge deficit to a surplus to a balanced budget. So that's a lot of work that you, as the congregation, have done. As Debbie said, there's a few more improvements that are really needed to consider this sustainable. We had a really great response to the Giving Tuesday this past fall. We hope that that is going to continue. There's a real generational shift going on, that younger people tend to be less oriented towards pledging, that kind of thing, and more responsive to direct appeals. So Giving Tuesday is still in the budget. This only, in terms of not being sustainable, we're budgeting for the half-time RE director for next year, where obviously we want that to be a full-time position as RE continues to grow back. So we're not quite at that sustainable level, but I think we're at a level that we could all feel good about. So let's go ahead and call the question of the budget. There weren't any questions, so all in favor of approving the budget as presented by Debbie, please say aye. Aye. Is there anyone opposed? If you're opposed, you can raise your hand on Zoom too. And anyone abstaining? Okay, so the budget is passed as well. So, okay, so that concludes the meeting. That's not too bad. It's a little over an hour. That concludes the meeting. We still have fun things that are planned for the rest of the year, a picnic coming up. So we're hoping to continue to finish the year strong. As Debbie said, if you did make a Close the Gap pledge and you haven't sent that in yet, you can certainly go ahead and do that. So onward and upward. It's been a great year. I'm really encouraged about our future. And at this point, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting. Debbie's ready. All in favor of adjournment, please say aye. Aye. Okay, anyone opposed? Okay, thank you very much. We're all done.